Tonight, the LAPD is setting some details straight in the very high-profile case of Celeste Rivas. She's the teen found dead in a car belonging to singer David. Investigators have now blocked the LA County Medical Examiner from releasing her autopsy. CBS LA's Jeff Nguyen with the new developments tonight.
The LAPD is pushing back against what it calls false reporting in the death investigation of Celeste Rivas. And tonight, investigators are still working to figure out the cause of her death. The commanding officer of LAPD's elite robbery homicide division says he's disappointed by what he calls misinformation from TMZ that's been picked up by other outlets in the death investigation of Celeste Rivas. The 14-year-old's body was found in the trunk of a Tesla belonging to singer David, whose legal name is David Anthony Burke. TMZ is reporting Rivas's body had been frozen. Captain Scott Williams disputed that and other reports on the case during an interview with KNX News Radio's Emily Valdez.
They're reporting that Celeste's body was frozen when it was discovered is untrue. Celeste was not decapitated. So I'm not sure exactly who their source is that's giving them this information.
The car was found abandoned in the Hollywood Hills in September. Williams also says detectives have no evidence Rivas's body was taken to Santa Barbara County for dismemberment.
Disappointing to me because all of this misinformation that's being put out there, it just creates additional work for my investigators that they have to do in order to get to the truth of the matter.
The LAPD has obtained a court order forbidding the LA County Medical Examiner's Office from releasing all details in its investigation into the teen's death. The ME took the unusual step of criticizing the decision Monday with a statement, saying in part the practice of security holds is virtually unheard of in other counties and has not proven to improve outcomes in the legal system. We are dedicated to serving our community with full transparency. However, the law precludes us from doing so while the court order remains in this case.
That is literally unprecedented.
Now, that is weird. Now, I will say that's weird. They don't want the public knowing the cause of death or the medical examiner's findings. It's weird. It's very weird, very suspicious. I wonder why. Maybe when they're trying to question David, they try to get him to make a statement that not the normal public would know. That's the only thing I can think about. Or whenever the suspected killer, they make a statement, and if they agree with it, or if they make something that only the killer would know because the information that's released hasn't been released yet, it makes sense. It could make sense. But I would like to know how she died. What happened? What was the circumstances of it? Because we've been waiting on the information. We've been waiting on this information. Now let's finish up this video.
Unprecedented.
Defense attorney Mark Garagos is not involved in this case. He says the ME's statement signals tension with law enforcement.
If there is no arrest, I think it's going to cast a suspicion and a pall over the investigation. And if there is an arrest, it's going to be fodder for the defense. And so either way, it's a lose-lose.
The LAPD says the security hold was not done to undermine transparency, instead to protect the integrity of the investigation in the pursuit of justice. In the meantime, we have also reached out to David's attorneys.
So, yeah, I can see them trying to use it for the investigation, but I would like to know how she died. Was she already dead? Did she die? There's a lot of questions I would like to know, but I can see them trying to use withholding the information for when they try to catch the killer. Or if David slips up somehow, if he is the actual killer. Now let's go over into TMZ and hear their response to basically them saying that their information is false. So let's get into it.
An LAPD captain is disputing part of a story that we broke over the weekend. A story about David, the singer David, and the body that was found in his Tesla, that body of Celeste Rivas. And the part of our story that we broke over the weekend was that that the remains of Celeste were partially frozen when they were found in the Tesla. This was back in early September, first week in September, when they discovered this when David's car had been towed to an LA tow yard. Well, the LAPD captain is saying that the body was not frozen.
Herein lies the issue. we have a very well-connected source connected to the medical examiner, the LA County Medical Examiner, which currently has the body. And that source has doubled, tripled, quadrupled, and sextupled down actually now, saying that the body was indeed partially frozen when it was received by law enforcement. So that's kind of interesting, but the medical examiner is just telling a different story, or at least the sources we have, and we have sources in all camps in this, there's a conflict here.
We'd heard that there had been this conflict between LAPD and the medical examiner.
There's been tension for
Right.
several years, but this is kind of interesting. One of the documents at the LA County Medical Examiner's office has an interesting statement. This has to do with trying to fingerprint Celeste's body. It says the decedent was not live scanned due to waterlogged fingers.
Mm.
Well, that's kind of interesting.
Right.
In
Why would the fingers
be waterlogged?
waterlogged? Well, certainly if the body had been frozen for quite some time and then is sitting in a bag in this Tesla out in the blazing hot summer sun, yeah, you would imagine that there's going to be some water in that bag.
So you've got to kind of like look at the big picture here. So we told you that even though there has not been a cause or manner of death determined by the medical examiner, and there may not be because of the state of the body, the LAPD is operating under the assumption that this is a homicide and that David is a suspect, and there is an accomplice, they believe, somebody who helped dismember the body. Now, there is a mysterious trip that becomes really important in this case, we're told, that David took to Santa Barbara in the spring of this year, in the middle of the night in a remote area of Santa Barbara County, spent several hours there. We are told the following, that and this is based on sources, that the body wasn't buried, but the strong insinuation that we got was that's where it was dismembered. So what happened to the body between the spring, if this is true, between the spring of this year and September when the body was discovered in the car?
Well, that's a lot of contradicting information. So you got to think that the LAPD issued a statement saying that the body was not frozen, partially frozen. The body was not dismembered or anything like that. So, like I said, it could be the fact of where they're trying to stifle the information getting out so they can at least try to trap the killer in its knowledge. If the public doesn't know that the body was dismembered and they mention something about it and he slips up somehow, they might can catch him in a slip up. I could see that happening. But would they do it? Would they just outright tell the medical examiner, well, I guess, but it's just a weird situation, absolutely weird. But let's keep going.
Right. I mean, if this just a theory, I think that it would make sense if they went there just to not have a mess, and that's when they dismembered it, and then it was in a freezer for a long period of time, and then
It almost points to it must have been frozen. And I understand the
Well,
LAPD captain is disputing this, but our sources insist 100% it was frozen. And that completely makes sense. Partially frozen when the body came to the ME's office.
It also makes sense with the state of decomposition, right? I mean, from spring to when it's discovered in September, when the body is discovered, they say it's in a state of decomposition, but the waterlogging, all that stuff indicates frozen at some point, whether frozen when they actually pull it out or not, because the state of decomposition of a human body from the spring to the summer would be really pronounced. You wouldn't see fingers and things like that, even to live scan in the first place.
Yep.
I don't even want to go as far as saying, yeah, we know it's frozen, because we don't. This is what we're
being told. Right.
We've got sources, in the investigation, and we have told you appropriately, I believe, what the nature of our source is in connection to this. But I don't know how you put the dots together, connect the dots of spring, say it's April,
Let's say April,
May, June, July, August. That's 4 months. what happened to the body during those 4 months?
By the way,
the
the
body-
4 warmest months
That's
in
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Southern
In
California.
Southern California.
And
Right.
it would start to smell. The fact that
The
it
odor
didn't.
was there, though, according to the tow
The
shop.
odor was
Right,
there.
no, at the
Because
tow
it was
shop.
The
Right.
odor was
because
there.
it was
At the tow shop, yeah.
Right.
Right, but I
Correct.
think remember how long the Tesla was parked on the street? I think that it would have started emitting some sort of, I mean, I'm not a scientist,
Yeah.
but some sort of smell before it was eventually towed away.
And obviously, the one thing we can't explain is how does the body end up in that car?
Yeah.
How does the body end up
And why?
in the Tesla?
Yeah.
And
How? I mean, obviously, someone placed it there, but we can't.
It doesn't
Why
make-
they would have done it
It's really
is
dumb.
And the body
Yeah.
on top of that was also
Okay, so I think we got the gist. Think we got the gist of what they're mentioning. So the main thing is that we don't know the exact time of death. We don't know how long she was suspected to be dead because they are sealing the records for the medical examiner or not letting them release any information to the public. So let's get over into more into that for this last video, for this little section.
This weekend, there was bombshell reporting that Celeste Rivas Hernandez's body had likely been frozen. She's the young runaway whose boyfriend, singer David, is much older, and in whose Tesla trunk her remains were discovered. Sources told several outlets that Celeste had been decapitated and that her limbs had been removed from her torso, cut into pieces, and then apparently stored in a freezer. But tonight, the captain of the Robbery Homicide Division of the LAPD is telling People magazine those reports aren't true. Captain Scott Williams tells People that Celeste was not frozen and that, quote, Celeste was not decapitated. The whole frozen thing doesn't even make sense. Her body was in the car for weeks, he said. And he added, even if she had been frozen solid when she was put in the car, which there is no evidence to suggest she was, 5 or more weeks in the trunk of a car in sweltering heat in the middle of summer would not have resulted in a partially frozen body being discovered on September the 8th, end quote. Tonight, the LA Medical Examiner's Office, the people who did the autopsy on Celeste, say that they're officially being barred by court order from saying anything about her death. And it was the LAPD that asked the court to do that. And if you find that outrageous, as I do, the ME is not thrilled about it either. The LAPD requested what's called a security hold, and a judge okayed it. But the ME says a security hold is virtually unheard of in other counties, and counter to the mission of what it says is full transparency at the ME's office.
Now, it does make sense to where I don't see it being partially frozen if the body was in there for weeks. Makes sense that hot car, summer, makes completely sense. But if they're saying that it was water in the bag, and the fingerprints you couldn't get a viable fingerprint scan because the fingers were waterlogged, makes sense that it was frozen at some point. That does make sense to me. Let's keep going.
So what don't the police want us to know? All I can tell you is that the gag order coincides with the explosive reporting about the whole frozen stuff. Last week, we told you that David is now officially considered a suspect. TMZ reporting that the police have their eyes, though, on a second suspect as well, who may have, quote, been involved before, during, and after Celeste's death, end quote. The outlet says police are focusing on a quick trip in the middle of the night to a remote location in Santa Barbara County that was done back in spring. TMZ says police are focusing on that location as possibly being where Celeste was killed. Remember, Celeste was discovered September 8th, and only then because of a terrible smell coming from the trunk of that Tesla parked just around the block from David's mansion. Joining me now is Michelle Dupree, a retired forensic pathologist, former medical examiner, and friend of the show. Dr. Dupree, thanks for being on. I had so many questions when I heard this report. First and foremost, you're not going to get partially frozen body parts at the ME's office if there was a stench coming from the trunk. That would have been a long thawed, long decomposing body. But I do want to ask you if there might be some partial truth to this, that possibly those body parts had been frozen long ago and then had decomposed in the back of the trunk. If that part might be true, what does that do to a medical examiner trying to determine what happened with this body that they've received? What was the cause of death? Would freezing do something to that body?
Absolutely, freezing would. And it is possible that the body was frozen, and then, of course, after 5 weeks would not be frozen when found. But freezing actually damages the cells. It also actually speeds up decomposition once it starts to thaw. anything that is blunt trauma, a gunshot wound, sharp force injuries, something like that, that would still be available. We would still see that at the autopsy. But anything that might be subtle, such as strangulation or something of that nature, would be much, much more difficult if the body had been frozen. And again, of course, once it's so badly decomposed.
I've got 5 seconds left. We had so much breaking news off the top of this program. I just have to ask you how unusual this is that the LAPD asked a court to block the medical examiner from releasing any details.
It's very unusual. Transparency is part of it. But it is not unheard of. If they really think it's going to affect the investigation, then it's warranted.
Dr. Dupree.
Absolutely crazy. I think we got the gist of that. Now it's like I said, I can see the body being frozen before. That's why the fingers were waterlogged. They couldn't get a fingerprint scan. But them not releasing or putting a gag order on the medical examiner findings, it's a little suspicious, a little weird. But I can also see that them wanting to use the information to catch the killer in a lie, catch the killer in a saying something that only the killer would know. Just from all the shows and different stuff that I've watched, that's what I'm thinking. But let me know your thoughts, y'all. Let me know if you disagree with anything I said. We keep up with this. Hopefully, we'll one day get the actual cause of death, because we still don't know. We don't know when she died. We don't know how long. How long she's exactly been dead. If she died in the car, she died afterwards. So if she died before, it's a crazy situation. Let me know your thoughts. All right, everybody. Remember, this is AC Reviews the Word. Remember to like and subscribe.